Wetlands are complex and highly specialized landscapes that are found at the interface of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. How does the design of the Hong Kong Wetland Park respond to the complexities of wetland ecosystems? What experiments were done during the design process? What kind of adaptive management should be carried out after the design is finished?
As one of the first constructed wetlands in Hong Kong, I understand you had to learn a lot about planting.
We did.
How did you guys go about that?
Oh, okay. Well, when this was in the design stage, nobody knew very much about we knew what plants were growing in various wetlands, but we didn't know how adaptable they were and how well they would respond under being planted. In order to be able to produce a proper planting list and specifications and quantities and therefore estimates for the actual contract, we had to learn quite a lot about what plants were available and what conditions they were going to grow in. Do we grow them from seed? Do we grow them from seedlings? Where do we get these from? How well do they grow? What sort of water depth do they prefer? We didn't know this, so my predecessor had an arrangement with WWF up at my Po, and they allowed us to bulldoze one of the gay Ys, because normally gay Ys do this,
Right.
and we wanted that because we wanted variable water depth, different water depths. And then we created a series of plots which were framed with wooden planks, about 3 or 4 meters long and about 1.5 meters wide. And in each plot we put different species. So we could very clearly see what was their preferred water depth. Did they like bare mud? Did they like 1/2 meter deep water? Did they float? Did they not mind at all and just grew on the whole thing? And we did this for 2 years. I think it was 60 each year.
They were selected from what the contractor could obtain in Guangdong province, as there were no wetland plant nurseries in Hong Kong at that time.
So as you can imagine, some of the plants just didn't work. So out of all the 120 odd that we tested, we finished up using about 60 in the planting design. After 2 or 3 years, there were only 6 species left, because the dominant species, like Azolla, like Phragmites, had just come in and taken over everything.
What were your reflections looking back on this project?
The information that we gathered from the trials have been very useful to inform other people's work. Other wetlands that have been designed and constructed since then have built on the work that was done in the trials. All the species are what the ecologist at Hong Kong U called pantropical weeds. They are species that you find in rice paddies. They are not native to Hong Kong. So the only reason for planting them is to create habitat for other things, for dragonflies, for amphibians, for birds. Because they're not native, it's not as if they're very specific, species-specific requirements to eat a particular plant. Wetland plants are very generic in this part of the world anyway. So the structure that you are creating is actually more important than the species diversity. So you want different heights, you want some that will float, you want some that are emergent. We have floating plants here, we have emergent plants here. We have ones like lotus, which come up and create an umbrella of shade so things can run around underneath.
Let's talk about lessons learned, or things that could be done differently, or that you would do differently.
Well, I think one of the things we have learned is how important management and maintenance is, because wetland habitats in particular, but the same goes for really any habitat you're creating, it is not a fixed product at the end of the construction period. Plants grow, animals invade. It has to be managed, it has to be maintained in order to keep it going. Otherwise, the wetland's all going to become, especially in this climate, the wetland will all become land in the space of 20 years. So if you want to maintain a wetland, you have to be doing dredging, you have to be doing vegetation control. We're in the Mudflat hide here, and this is my favourite part of Wetland Park, because this is the bit that works exactly as we designed it to work. We wanted to create a habitat that mimicked the deep bay mudflats. to bring in specifically the birds that normally are out in the mudflat a long way away. Getting the water levels in here right, because we're relying on the tide. This is tidal, but it's also controlled by some sluices, so it could be flooded if necessary, or it could be completely drained down. So it's a very controllable, so that the managers can vary it on a day-to-day basis if they want, but certainly on a season-to-season basis, depending on what's going on. At the moment, it's not got much water in, and I think that's because they've got breeding stilts in here, so they don't want too much water because the nests might get flooded. In the autumn and in the spring, there would be more water in here, and if you come in the winter or the spring, you will find thousands of birds on this mudflat eating. You find black-faced spoonbills, you find lots and lots of waders, red shanks and green shanks, you find stints and curlew sandpipers and all sorts of things in here. This area is where the managers, AFCD, have done some improvement work. This is the butterfly garden in Wetland Park, and this was not in the original design back in 2000. This was all a sort of mediocre woodlandy bit. And AFCD have gone to a lot of work, and it's working really well in creating a butterfly garden here. AFCD here have both planted flowering plants and also foods plants for a range of butterflies. Now, at this time of year, we're in June, the flowers are not as good as they are at other times of year, but you can still see there's still a lot of butterflies around. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but I can see at least 10 butterflies just down there. So in that sense, creating some generic, fairly standard wetland types worked, because it's attracted quite a lot of butterflies. And the great thing about a butterfly garden is that it is attractive to look at. It doesn't need to cover a very big space, and people really love butterflies. So it's great for photography.